The first human died screaming my name, and I didn't even know what a scream was supposed to sound like until that moment. We were pinned beneath a violet sky that boiled like a wounded thing, the air trembling with weapons fire and the distant howls of creatures I had only seen in classified briefings. I was a Kelry tactical observer, embedded with the United Terra Marines as part of the Coalition's Unity experiment. I was meant to watch, to learn, to report. Instead, I watched Sergeant Elias Rook throw himself in front of a breach that wasn't meant to exist. That should have been impossible. But nothing on Karen. 9 followed rules anymore. And that was only the beginning. I remember thinking, absurdly, that humans were smaller than I expected. Fragile, soft-bodied. Their bones lacked reinforcement ridges. Their skin tore easily. And yet Rook stood in front of me, rifle blazing, shouting orders into the chaos as if the universe itself might listen. "Move, Tali," he yelled. "Get to the trench." He used my name, not my designation. That mattered more than I realized then. The enemy came out of mist in shapes that hurt to look at, biological weapons fused with machinery, screaming in frequencies that made my neural crests ache. Coalition intelligence called them the Virex Swarm. Humanity called them nightmares. We fought side by side that day. Humans bleeding red, me bleeding blue. The ground soaked it all up uncaring. When Rook fell, torn apart by something that had once been a person, the Marines didn't break. They roared, and I felt something crack inside me, because that scream he died making, it wasn't fear. It was rage. What I saw next changed everything. They pulled us back at dusk, if you could call it that. Karen 9 orbited a dying star. Light came and went in sickly pulses. We regrouped in a forward bunker carved into black stone, lit by flickering holograms and the glow of human eyes that refused to dim. Captain Mara Vance stood at the center of it all, helmet off, blood streaking her cheek. Human blood. She didn't wipe it away. "We hold the line," she said, voice steady despite the losses scrolling across the wall behind her, "or the swarm reaches the refugee zones." I studied her face. Exhaustion, grief, resolve. Emotions my species filtered away for efficiency. And yet here they were, raw and powerful, driving her forward instead of breaking her. "Captain," I said carefully, "Coalition projections show a 78% chance of annihilation if we remain." She looked at me, really looked. "Then we'll make that 22% hurt like hell," she replied. The Marines laughed. Quietly, darkly. I should have reported that moment as irrational behavior. Instead, I logged it as tactical cohesion under stress. But even then, something felt wrong. The Virex weren't advancing like an army. They were circling, hurting us, drawing us towards something buried beneath the planet's crust. Every instinct I had screamed a warning. None of us were prepared for the truth. The next assault came without warning. No roar, no charge. The ground itself split open. Creatures poured out, not attacking, but fleeing, Virex units tearing themselves apart, shrieking as if hunted by something worse. The humans hesitated for half a second. Then Captain Vance shouted, "Weapons free." We fought our way through the chaos, deeper into the broken earth, following the swarm's retreat, because humans don't run from monsters. They chase them. That was when we found the facility. Ancient, alien, not Virex. Human, buried kilometers underground, sealed behind doors marked with faded Terran symbols. A black sun, a warning sigil my translation implant flagged as pre-coalition Earth. Project Lazarus. My processors stuttered. "This installation predates human first contact," I said. "By centuries." Captain Vance's jaw tightened. "Yeah, we know." That answer chilled me more than the dead world above. Inside, the air was sterile and cold. Rows of containment chambers lined the walls, many shattered from the inside. Whatever had been held here had escaped. The data logs were worse. Humans had discovered the Virex not as invaders, but as victims, a species partially consumed by something else, something humans tried to study, control, weaponize, and failed. I watched footage of early experiments. Human scientists screaming, consoles flashing red, subjects begging in a dozen languages. At the center of it all was a name repeated over and over. The Maw. What is it? I asked, my voice barely steady. Captain Vance didn't answer right away. It's what happens, she finally said, when you give humanity enough time and tell them there's no other option. But that was only the beginning. The alarms began to scream. Not human alarms. Something older, deeper. The facility shook as if the planet itself were trying to escape. From the central chamber, the darkness moved. The Maw was not a creature, in any way my mind wanted to define. It was absence given hunger, a terror in reality that remembered how to hate. It fed on thought, on fear, on the space between atoms. The Virex hadn't invaded this world. They'd been running from it, and now it was awake. Humans didn't freeze. They formed ranks. I watched Marines load weapons that couldn't possibly work, their hands steady, their faces set. I felt terror coil through my neural pathways. This entity cannot be destroyed, I said. Coalition doctrine requires immediate evacuation. Captain Vance smiled, a tired, sad, terrifying smile. Yeah, she said. We figured that out. Then she opened a private channel. Lazarus Protocol, she whispered. What I saw next made my blood run cold. Hidden beneath the facility was a reactor unlike anything in Coalition records. Not a bomb, not a weapon, a prison, built to hold the Maw by feeding it something it craved even more than fear. Human will. The plan was insane. Volunteers would interface directly with the containment field, flooding it with conscious resistance, raw emotion, defiance. It would bind the Maw long enough to collapse the chamber and bury it forever. It would kill them. All of them. I stepped forward. This is unacceptable. You cannot ask. We didn't ask, Captain Vance said softly. They volunteered. Sergeant Rook's name was on the list. He had signed it months before he ever met me. I understood then. Humans hadn't brought us here to fight alongside them. They brought witnesses. The final battle was not loud. It was quiet. The Maw pushed against its cage, reality bending as human minds burned themselves out holding it back. I felt their emotions to the link. Fear, love, regret, hope, all weaponized into a single impossible stand. I wanted to turn away. I couldn't. Captain Vance stood at the center, eyes closed, blood streaming from her nose, whispering names like prayers. The chamber began to collapse. Go, she said to me, opening her eyes one last time. Tell them what we did. I hesitated. Then I did something no Carey observer had ever done. I saluted. I ran. The explosion never reached me. The planet sealed itself shut, the Maw entombed beneath layers of rock and sacrifice. Silence followed. Years later, I stand before the Coalition Assembly, my report finished. They ask why humans are classified as a level Omega ally. They ask why entire worlds now bear Terran warning beacons. They ask why no one is allowed to dig on Karen 9. I tell them the truth, that when the universe created something too horrible to exist, it was humanity that chose to stand in front of it and burn.